what's up? Chris Weinert here. I was watching a couple videos on, a few different platforms, YouTube and even Gab and a few others. Usually a lot of stuff that I see on Gab has to click over to like Rumble or another platform that doesn't have such strict censorship rules as YouTube. I'm trying to maybe get out to a little bit of a bigger audience and less of a precise fringe, I guess, in terms of who to reach. So far, I've reached like 10, 11 people in subs on YouTube, so I'm moving up in the world. Long story short, though, I'm trying to make it, I guess, compatible as I can for YouTube, despite the algos and the censorship and all the other stuff. I'm going to try to be vague, and I understand people could probably get in here and say, oh, this, that, whatever, but much of the vagueness is for, I guess, to beat the algos and to actually stand some other platforms instead of just one or two. Long story short, there you go. Too late, right? I saw this video, though, where this guy was stealing catalytic converters. And as he's getting arrested, he's talking about, the death of Babylon and, America being subverted. I think there is a lot of paramilitary personnel that has been shuffled into this country. I've mentioned this in so many other videos. A warrior leaves his family behind when he goes to war, and a refugee takes his family with him to escape a war. And these people coming in here certainly don't have families, and they certainly, I think, are being brought here and subsidized, more importantly, not only by NGOs, but the UN and even technically maybe the Federal Reserve and certain aspects of our government. And people could say, well, why is that? What do they do that, this, that, whatever for? And I guess maybe you're a little new to this. Maybe it's a newer concept for you, but they've always done this. And, I guess the FBI has kind of led a lot of this since the J. Edgar Hoover days. And whether you're talking the Prohibition era, the House Un-American Activities Commission era, the Red Scare type era after World War II, the communist thing that they led to with that COINTELPRO, Operation Chaos, on into the pad card conspiracies, going after the white nationalists as the greatest threat to national security in the 80s and 90s. Even the Aryan Brotherhoods and many of the things like that, they've if not run it, have had people inside of it doing it, or at least spying on everybody that is running it, and then allowing them to continue until they basically want to snap and grab them all. And then, of course, they usually wait till a moment where the media and the sentiment of the public can be swayed to really condemn these people to push a bigger agenda. So the PATCON thing was going on in the 90s. People were going nuts about the very same shit that is going on right now. They were starting to deregulate energy and communications and banking and all these industries so that they can bring about this stuff in, bring in these trade deals, basically outsource American labor and replace us with, more compliant collaborators. And really, the controlled destruction of America has been part of the plan all along. It's a Scottish Rite Freemason thing. The country was built and will be destroyed by them in a Tohu Tikkun Hebrew type fashion. All these guys, like I said, are tied together with the Freemasons and with people want to see the Jews, and really the Jews came after the Freemasons, which people don't really understand that part. So I almost really think that the Jews are a construct of this Tyrian Phoenician nobility, goes back a ways. I think you could trace it back to even, the Nimrod stuff in Acadia and the original Assyria and Babylon. The rise of that. The Tower of Babel would be another thing. I guess people don't understand that most of our monotheism is streamlined from polytheism, from the same temple priests and scribes that created the last racket. And this was the justification not only for financial power, but for spiritual control and certainly social control. The justification of laws, God, and in God we trust, full faith and credit, these things. All these systems are built upon the trust and the belief of a majority into a Golem enterprise that was created by them in the first place. And I know it's going to be hard for people to swallow. People are going to get really pissed off. Their programming, their binary psychologies are going to flip out, and they're going to pretty much start, either probably stop listening or start attacking at this point. But hear me out on this and really think about it. In the days of the Sibyls and things of the sort, they had what were called augurs or auspicers that would, in many cases, take on the natural actions, or even in some cases, they would sacrifice animals, whether it was snakes or birds, and monitor their entrails after the death and what they would do and try to read these things. And, there's really some bizarre stuff, and there was a lot of psychotropic drugs involved at the high priest level with this stuff too. And it was like the prominence of every major empire. And empires rose and fall not only on their exchangeability of currency, but also on their acceptance of this religion. And, most of these religions were constructs of old myths or things that were put together in these cultures locally and then applied towards, a pantheon of demigods and gods. And I guess you got to look at how these people that I'm talking about ran that whole thing through the mystery schools and many of the things like that. Plato, Aristotle, all these guys are students of this. Alexander the Great. In theory, Jesus was a Therapeutidae, a Nazarene, a scene, whatever you call it, that studied this stuff too. So like the Magi coming to see him, these are absolutely, the Masons in this mystery school. And basically, the tenets of Freemasonry come from this to this day. A lot of it is buried or symbolically represented in many other representations of pre-existing mono and polytheistic religions. Like I mentioned, the Tower of Babel or the Amaleks or any of these things. Most of these people that are deemed the enemies of this are ones that refuse to join this brotherhood and to hold it in reverence. These are the people that probably stuck up for the kids and stuck up for the women and stuck up for the widows and orphans, and certainly even the military men that were being sent to sacrifice themselves in these absurd wars. These wars of bankers and power and control. So I guess when you get into these things, you can see how history is formed and fabricated, and how empires have risen and fallen, created and destroyed by these very same people. And the whole concept of creation and destruction is another symbolic notion. It goes back to the Tower of Babel. At the time, it was called the Towers of Silence or Towers of Death, or they had a bunch of other names for these things. But in pre-Zoroastrianism, they actually had, they would bury their dead not in grounds, but they would put them in these, like, basically conical structures that were towers. And they had little areas there where birds could come in and peck away them and carry them off into the heavens. I know it sounds crazy, but this is something that they did before they started burying people. They didn't really do this until coming out of Egypt was really when they started doing this type of stuff, entombing and then burial. So, there's a phoenix rising from the ashes, the Phoenicians, the Bitcoin symbol, all these things, the masonry, the Rothschild stuff, the symbolic shibboleths. These things are all very much representations of this, and you can find them throughout the Revolution. And as I said, every single general in the Revolution, the Civil War, and all the world wars were all part of this Masonic order. So, we're kind of like sitting here struggling with each other and at each other's throats over the chicken and the egg issue. And it's the whole point of this historic obfuscation is to have a trinity of basically obfuscation to point, to the right all at the same time and point to a different suspect. And if you have more than one suspect, then there can be no single criminal, and certainly there can be no prosecutable conspiracy so long as these people have insiders at the top of the legal institutions, which they obviously do. So this is a very well-bred and a fully extended departmentalization of humanity. And at the top of this stuff everywhere, they have their insiders, their bloodliners, their quadroons, people that are initiated into this and really, I guess, put through the test most of their lives, similar to like an Iroquois gauntlet. But, fraternal organizations and loyalty tests and things of this sort are given and certainly rewarded, or punished even for that matter, if failed. Within these institutions, and you'll see them, hanging out celebrities all the time that fail to comply with their standards of behavior. Guys and women that violate the gentleman's rule or anything like that. Any of these groomed kids that have been sexually traumatized and trauma-based mind control that are now celebrities are perfect examples. You can get into like Britney Spears or some of these other folks. They'll either make them look like they're crazy, or they'll just murder them and make it look like they kill themselves or something like that. So this happens whenever people don't fall into compliance with the orders of this thing. And I'm just saying that this thing is on both sides of every war. This is the group that is controlling Russia, through Shabbat Lubavitch and through a lot of the Orthodox instruments of Masonry. This is why they have, the Masonic order in the four corners of the world, departmentalized in such a way that they do, so that one side doesn't know what the other side's doing. But at the top and highest levels, these guys are all in collaboration with one another, and they're all controlling the population. They all control the value of labor, the value of goods, basically war and peace, the sacrifice of fighting age male populations, the changing of laws, or even the imposition of religious notions. They go with the persecution and the Messiah complex, the whole thing with that. The binary psychology behind this. It even is like the Trump and anti-Trump thing. If you think about these polarizing events they're doing in the political spectrum, they're all run by AIPAC and the CFR, and they're all part of this thing. Maybe Trump is kind of strayed away from their expectations in some ways. Maybe this is all part of the show to give him street credibility. Maybe it's a combination of this thing. I'm not saying and claiming to know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, and anybody that does is probably either full of shit or lying to themselves and you. So what I will say is that on the MacLeod side of his family, he's probably part of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry. And I'd say on the Trump side, he's got to be a high-level Illuminati Mason as well. John Trump was given custody of Tesla's research number 2 in the FBI in the time of the COINTEL J. Edgar Hoover FBI. So, this is a big deal. These guys are given insider housing and urban development contracts through C. Dillon Reed and laundering for the mafia and for this group for decades, and Trump is, more useful for these operations. He's more useful alive than dead. That's why Rothschild thrice restaked him after he bankrupted billions and billions of dollars. And I got to think, maybe he's getting his own money by doing this. Maybe they're giving him more money. Maybe they're just, playing this whole script out in a kayfabe, baby face and heel style audience manipulation tactic. These are things you really got to think about. You got to think about the Goldman Sachs cabinet, i.e. the swamp. You got to think about lock her up becomes their good people. You got to think about warp speed. You got to think about these things, people, because if you're a fanatic, you can't just pick a side based on your feeling, if gut tells your brain it's a damn moron, well, then I don't think it's really going to serve you too well, and not going to serve me too well. You can lie to yourself, but lying to others is ultimately going to lead to your own self-destruction. And primarily, this is the point of this whole Masonic thing, and even the using the Jews as their own religious monks, their own bureaucrats that they have within these organizations, their own spies, their own, operatives, we'll say. I think this is spies of Joshua, as I said. And I think at the highest levels of this whole thing, it all stems from this. And I think really when you start to see this for what it is, you can really hack through a lot of the bullshit, and really you won't get tripped up on the rhetoric or the inversion so much. You can more or less follow the actions and follow the money and see damn well what's probably going on here. So I really want to tie a lot of this shit together. I know it's kind of all over the place here and not as precise as I'd like to be in a 15-minute video, but I don't know. I think it's important to tie these things together, because this is a plague of locusts that has superseded and out-existed every empire. It's built and destroyed them all alike. They even have timelines for the empire, stages of the empire. You read Toynbee's book, they'll tell you all about this shit. They actually plan on how long they have to run this gambit on humanity before they finally figure it out. And if you think about it, how many people's families going to get slaughtered before they finally figure it out, and before you have to bring in new people to just swear into this death called blood oath, and to serve it loyally and blindly, because in order to serve it loyally, you got to serve it blindly. The same with justice. And they make entire industries out of this stuff. And it's no joke that we're ended up in the positions we are, because this is the greater good, or the lesser of two evils, that has been our source of collaboration, and we end up serving this thing that's supposedly there to serve us. And most of our carrots and sticks are kind of exploitations and extortion tactics, more so than actual beliefs. And propaganda and patriotism are certainly used in many ways to steer this herd, and to put this shame-based peer pressure on everyone. It's not an accident. It was created and developed through the religious sources of power, but it was perfected through empire. And I just think if these guys are allowed to go forward with CBDC and the digital tally sticks and controlling, the entitlement contracts like I was talking about yesterday, to keep putting these illusions out, these phantom valuations out, these inversions of economic sanity and reality, these things are mind-wrecking. They're soul-crushing and spirit-wrenching. They would drive a normal person crazy. But eventually, I'm going to tell you, this whole thing, gravity cannot be ignored. Economic forces cannot be ignored. These guys understand that this is a temporary gambit. It's a 100-year plan, and now they're starting to reel that thing back in. The Federal Reserve was the 100-year plan to get all the assets, and now this is the plan to control all the assets. So they got to bring in that CBDC. And in order to do that, the guys that created and destroyed the system have to destroy the system and then create a new system that will replace it, and no other alternative, of course, so that they can control the next one, the next generations. So, I think, people are all getting wrapped up on this USA-Russia thing and this Cold War 2.0 thing, and they forget all about who the middlemen in the middle of this whole thing were, who the guys were selling to both sides, building both sides, stealing intellectual property from both sides, and then using it for their own aggrandizement and own enrichment. Who the ones are that are taking this intellectual property and releasing it to Wall Street and putting IPOs out so that the public investors can actually fund the development of this, so that they may rake the private profits from it. They're doing the same thing with the government thing in the public sector as they are in the private sector, and you got to look at who these people are, and you got to look at what they're doing, and they're all part of a big ass club. And it supersedes regulatory authorities and things like that. They are the regulatory authorities. And this is the big reason why we have so many problems in this world, is because there's no honor amongst these thieves. They just pretty much create a system where only their own kind are exempt from any sort of legal prosecution or any sort of recourse. And of course, everybody else is punished preemptively, and in many cases, like in a Minority Report style, from much of the ways that you could have recourses are avenues that are completely destroyed by the FBI, by the CIA, and the deep state, so that it will basically, I guess if you take out the people that had a resistance and tried to make a stand and just turned them out, turned people against them, shamed them, threw them in jail, took all their money, or murdered them, it would probably, and with no recourse, no sort of oversight, no sort of journalistic integrity, nothing pointing this out. I guess if you keep doing that enough and enough and enough times, the reflex will be conditioned into the rest of the onlookers to understand, what's understood doesn't need to be discussed. That basically if they rise up, they will be put down, and that the law will turn a blind eye to them. to it. And any sort of recourse retaliation, they'll be met with the full weight of the law and certainly punished accordingly, and publicly shamed and given the damnation memoriae, either censored and erased or completely just disemboweled by the media that serves as the buzzards in this new Tower of Babel. So that being said, I think I'm going to get wrapping up here so that I can get this thing uploaded in a few hours. And I guess the last one got through, so good shit. We'll keep rocking these out, I guess. Yeah, I think maybe I'm going to do a